All right, big news last week. We found out via the Joe Rogan Experience that Chad Mendes is back, but it's happening in BKFC. Signs a multi-fight deal with the promotion. This is very exciting stuff. Happy to have Chad Money Mendes with us right now to talk all about it. Chad, good to see you, man. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been good. Just got finished with the hard practice and jumping in the office, get some work done before workout number 2. So it's great to talk to you. It's definitely been a while since I've been doing a lot of this media stuff. I've the second one today, so I got to get back in the swing of this stuff for sure.
Yeah, you seem like you haven't missed a beat, Chad. I think it's been like 5 or 6 years since we spoke, so time has fled. We're in different places in our lives. It's just crazy, but I'm not going to beat around the bush, man. The first question is an obvious one. How did this happen? You were retired from MMA. I know this is different, but still there's punches to the face. And, there's a lot of the same preparation that goes into this. And a lot of people feel that the sport can be a bit more brutal than fighting in MMA. Like, how did this all happen?
I mean, for me, when I left the UFC, I mean, there was a few reasons for me leaving. Obviously, I was still in my prime. Still competing with a lot of the guys, the top guys. I mean, my loss came to Volkanovski, who's now, somebody that's just been crushing through everybody. But for me, it was, we were about to have our first baby. We have a baby girl at that time. So obviously that brings a lot of different emotions and stuff into the fight game, at least for me anyways. But, and for me, I just started, I launched an outdoor service back in 2015 and at that point had been dumping a ton of time and energy into growing that. And then started a couple other businesses as well. So for me, going into that last fight, I feel like there was a lot of other things on my mind that I was, dumping my time and energy into that, MMA it's dangerous. Like, as much as I love it and I love competing, if you're not 100% focused on it, you can get in there and get hurt for sure. So I just, at that time, my contract, when I signed it, it would have been 4 or 5 years ago, was a decent contract. And it's not a good contract anymore in the UFC. And for me, it was like, look, I'm making X amount of money. I can make that double doing stuff in the outdoor industry and doing these things with my businesses. Like, is this something I'm even like in the mood to do anymore? Is it something I love? Like, why am I doing this? And so I basically just sat down with my wife and the team, and we kind of just game planned and figured that, look, I'm just basically going to hang them up. I'm going to go start these other ventures and put a lot of time and effort into growing this stuff. And, who knows, if there's bigger opportunities that come down the road, I'm going to be open to it. I know I'm still able to compete with the best in the world. That was never any issue of me leaving. I just at that time felt like it wasn't right for me anymore. And, getting in the last, year, just getting back into the gym a little bit here and there and really picking up the training over the last couple of months, I've just really gotten that itch to compete. And, I'd say it's probably been a little less than a year. I know on Rogan's, I said it was probably the last year, but a little less than a year, but we've been kind of going back and forth with these guys, talking numbers, and when the right numbers get thrown out, it's pretty hard to, especially when you have that itch, to say no to it. And we ended up figuring out a price that worked for me, worked for them. I get to basically get in there and compete in a sport that I've always wanted to try. Boxing has always been something I've been interested in. Obviously being a wrestler my whole life, when I made the transition into MMA, boxing was like my favorite thing out of everything that I got to train. It was like that new thing. I took to it really well. I think being explosive and powerful, and basically my body style, it just worked well for me. I was able to figure out the techniques that worked great for me. And so wrestling and boxing when I was in the UFC were basically like the heart of my style. It was late in my career that I finally got confident enough to really start throwing my hands. And when we got that stuff dialed, I felt like, my fight game completely changed. I was going out there and knocking guys out. And, I had a complete stand-up war with Jose Aldo, fight of the year. And so, I feel like even my fight with Conor, I was, getting some great shots in on the feet. And, I just felt good with my striking. And so for me, it was like, look, this deal makes sense. I'm still in my prime. Obviously my baby girl is older now. We have the whole baby situation figured out. We have our second one coming now, but, it was just a big, scary thing at that time, And so I feel like we are confident as parents now. And I feel like it's a time where I can get back in there and compete while I still have the opportunity. I'm 36 years old. I turned 36 in May. Probably maybe have 2 years, maybe 3 years before I'm probably going to be like, look, dude, that's probably enough for me. But like I said, this opportunity came up, I'm training, I feel good. So why not get in there? And to bring up the point of it being brutal, I just talked about this in the last interview. Think about when the UFC was first growing. Like everyone looked at it like it was so barbaric. Like my manager was telling me, he's like, back in the day, we could not get any company to sponsor any fighters. They're just like, oh no, we cannot be a part of that. That is just too barbaric. Like we can't be associated with it. Now it's like everybody wants to be a part of it. And I think we're probably moving in that direction. But really, I personally think MMA is way more dangerous than bare knuckle. I got someone throwing head kicks and cracking basically a baseball bat against my head. I got big knees. I got elbows. Wrestling, people trying to rip limbs off and tear tendons and ligaments. And, I think the room for error is definitely a lot bigger in the MMA side. Yeah, I think you're going to get cut a lot more with bare knuckle just because it's sharper surfaces, but the concussion is not going to be any different. If you take an MMA glove and look at it, you got about a half an inch of padding. So I'm basically taking a half inch, maybe even less, off of your knuckle. So it's not like it's going to change much of the concussion to the head, but all in all, that was kind of my arguing point with the wife anyways, because she's not, she definitely doesn't want me getting back in there and getting hurt, which is understandable. But for me, this is, it's always been a passion of mine. It's been something I absolutely love to do, and that's competing. And like I said, I feel like I'm still in my prime, so I need to jump on this while I can.
So did you approach them? Did they approach you? Like, how did the conversations actually start?
I guess originally they reached out to Uriah, I think is where it originally started. And then talking to my managers and stuff, kind of going back and forth is how it started. So they originally reached out, and the original numbers back then, it just wasn't something that enticed me enough to want to leave what I'm doing business wise and take that chance, And so like I said, it almost took about a year before we finally figured things out. But I feel good with where we're at. I feel, this is bigger than any UFC contract I've ever signed. And it makes me feel good and motivates me to train hard. I have this very awesome end game at the end of this fight contract. And it's like, I can take that and do so many things with my family, and grow things and help my businesses. And, I just feel good about it. And like I said, I feel good in training. So it's like, I don't feel like I have to like talk myself to get in there. It's like, I'm excited to do it, and I'm feeling good. So why not?
There's so much to unpack, but I guess the premise of all of this is that the itch was never gone. Like the itch to compete never left you. It was just, it was more about the family. It was more about, it's got to be right for you. It's got to be worth it. It's got to be worth your time. Like you realized what your value was and you weren't going to take anything less. Is that sort of the way you looked at it as well? Basically.
I think I wouldn't say the itch was gone, but the passion for it was kind of dulled a bit towards the end right there. Like I said, I was growing the different businesses and I was getting ready to have the baby. So there were so many other things that were pulling my attention away from the fight game, and that excitement for it just from doing it for so long, I think was dulling, and without that excitement to want to get in there and train, to want to get in there and get better, to want to get in there and get punched in the face. It's a tough sport, man. It's a tough road to fight through that and do it. So, and I always told myself I would fight, even when I signed in college with my management team. And my goal was, I'm going to fight till about 35. I'm going to reassess my life and see what things look like. And if it's something that makes sense to keep going, I'll keep going. If there's another avenue, I'm going to go do something else. And at that time, which I was 35, it just didn't, in my mind, make sense anymore. And like I said, everything was dulled, the excitement wise. So I took that other road. But it's crazy how everything kind of just goes full circle, and we're right back here. So we'll see.
Yeah, man. It is. I mean, especially like when you're that young, to have the sort of presence of mind to set a number. At 35, we're going to sit down and reassess this. A lot of people might do that, but then like a year later, it's gone. Like they're so busy with everything else. So did you have that like written down? Was that something that you had to sort of work with the entire time? That was always in the back of your mind, like 35, we're going to sit down and figure this thing out.
I think what reminded me all the time, and especially the reason why I even said that at such a young age, was I had so many friends and family members that were like, come on, dude, you just graduated college. Like you have a college degree. What are you doing? And it's like, look, I've competed. I started wrestling when I was 5 years old, never took a year off from 5 all the way up through college. And it's like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to go sit in an office if I don't have to. Like, if I can continue to compete and make money, it's like I could have tried for the Olympics, but, you don't make much money in the Olympics. And it's like, if I have this opportunity to get in there and compete and make money and start growing financially, like, why wouldn't I do that? So I think it was those people that were kind of always like, well, I don't know, just be safe. And so that's kind of where I was like, all right, well, let's just set this boundary. Like when I get to about 35, let's reassess. And that way I'm not doing it into my 40s. And obviously everybody's worried about brain damage, which I am too. That's always something that I've paid attention to. I lost a good buddy to CTE a few years ago. And that even retiring, that was something that weighed heavy on my mind. Like, why am I doing this? Like, is this something that, am I being selfish basically because I want to keep competing? I'm making money, but I could probably make money the same amount or more doing something else that I'm not damaging my head for, am I just being selfish? Is kind of what I thought. Almost felt guilty, if you know what I mean. But, it just, like I said, it didn't make sense at that time. And so we, like I said, took the different road. We grew the businesses. I feel very confident with what we have going over the last few years and how we've grown these things. And for me, it's really just me living my dream, which is freaking phenomenal. But I think comes full circle with grinding my whole life and going through the wrestling and then jumping into the UFC and building the brand and pushing through those awful days of training when everything hurts from head to toe. And I think that all just kind of came full circle, but we took that other road. And like I said, it led us right back to where we are now. So who knows, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to be.
There you go. I mean, I have a child, I have a wife, so I understand that maybe there's some trepidation on her part to, not just coming back, but coming back into something that's, compared to the UFC. I know bare knuckle boxing's been around for centuries, but in terms of being in the mainstream or for a lot of eyes to see, like you said, like it looks worse than it probably is. So how long did it take for you to actually get the blessing from the wife and get the go ahead?
I wouldn't say I necessarily have the blessing still, but we've kind of talked it through. And I think just kind of explaining this stuff to her, like honestly, like I probably have more of a chance getting injured in MMA than boxing, and I think laying all that stuff out, it kind of opened her eyes a bit. But yeah, I mean, she just loves me. I understand it. She doesn't want me going out there getting hurt. If we can be successful doing other things, like do other things. But, I don't want to say I'm being selfish again, but I'm kind of being selfish in the sense that I want to compete still. Like I'm not done. I'm still, like I said, still in my prime. I feel great. And this is just a huge opportunity. So it's like, but I think explaining everything, she understood, which is great. And she's awesome and definitely supports me. And she's an amazing mom. And thankfully, because it gives me time to get to the gym and do all the work stuff in between that I need to do. So it's cool.
Not easy to find in the sport.
No.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the storylines that came out of this is, speaking of getting blessings, is that you are still under contract with the UFC. And I assume you got said blessing from the UFC to go ahead and do this. Is that accurate? Was there any blowback from them at all?
I did. And it's actually really cool. I mean, they technically could have just said, you're not going anywhere. Like if you're not fighting here, you're not fighting. But, I've always had a great relationship with UFC, and I think this is an awesome thing for them to just let me go and make some money. Obviously it's boxing, it's not MMA, and there's no way they would have let me go fight in another MMA organization. I understand that. But still, they definitely could have just been like, no, we're not doing this. So no, it's my hat's off to them for being cool in this situation for sure.
Did you think they would?
I didn't, honestly. I didn't. I thought it would be a hell no, but it's pretty cool.
What did Uriah think about this whole thing? You going over to the bare knuckle world? What was his initial reaction to it?
I think
besides go get your money, kid.
Yeah, I think he's more excited than I am. He was actually trying to kind of talk me into it from the beginning, but he knows that it's got to make sense. I mean, he understands, like, we're doing well with these other businesses. It's not anything that isn't needed, and so he was actually helping lock these deals up. So he was going back and forth a little bit. My manager's going back and forth a little bit. So, I think there was a bunch of moving parts with all this, but yeah, Faber is definitely in there going to bat for me. So that's cool.
It's fun, man. Like I covered the last show in Tampa, the one that Paige and Rachel fought on. It was nuts. The whole car was insane, man. It's so much different going to one of those events and watching those events than watching a UFC or a Bellator event. It's like night and day.
I haven't been to any live events. I've been watching them, but I'm excited to go. I might have to go just check one out in person before my fight, just to see it firsthand. But yeah, man, it's an exciting sport. Like, you're starting off toe to toe, which is pretty cool. They're shorter rounds, they're 2-minute rounds. So it's like, I know guys in the UFC, me being one of them, with certain fighters, like, you want to pace yourself, you can't go balls to the wall the whole time. Where a 2-minute round, like, I've been doing training and hitting mitts and doing stuff for 2 minutes, like doing 2-minute rounds. And I'm like, God, it feels like 30 seconds after training 5-minute rounds, And so I feel like guys and girls feel that way too. And they're just letting it rip in there. So it's definitely pretty exciting for the fans to watch when there's no pacing yourself, for sure.
One thing that we've sort of that I've noticed, and Paige is kind of is probably the best example I can use for this, because the first fight that she had, and this is just me, I'm not a fighter. Maybe you can kind of give your take on this. The first fight she had with Britain Hart, I thought it was more like an MMA fighter going into bare knuckle boxing. The second fight with Rachel, I thought she focused a lot of time on her boxing. Her boxing was way better than it was. Like, it was much more technically sound, but I felt like there needs to be like a middle ground between the two. You know what I mean? Like, do you have to sort of deal with that? Like, think about that yourself. Like, what's the best way to approach this? Like, I can't be the wild MMA guy, but I have to have some technique as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I agree on that. I think Paige definitely looked a lot more technical and looked a lot more like a boxer in that second fight. But no, I think there's definitely got to be some middle ground. I think for me, I'm trying to find that, it's definitely, even hitting mitts over the last probably couple, 5-6 years of my MMA career, we focused a lot on just boxing. Let's be honest, I got short legs. I'm not flexible at all. A head kick for me was something that was extremely rare. So I didn't work it a ton. When Dwayne was there, we did a bit, but, I focused a lot on leg kicks and basically boxing, and so I definitely, for me, at least, I'm excited to really hone all my energy and just efforts to that one discipline, the boxing, just focus everything. And it to me, like, I'd say we've been doing that for probably the last 2 months now. And from the first time we really started to now, I feel night and day. Like, my boxing, I feel like, has gotten so much better, which, in MMA, it's like, God, you got 3 practices a day. You got a full pro practice in the morning, which is all of MMA. Then you go and do something strength and conditioning. Then you got to try to get a wrestling or a jiu-jitsu practice in the evening, and there's just like so many different disciplines that you have to try to fit in. I almost feel like it waters everything out and dilutes everything. Like, being able to just focus on one thing, like my wrestling career, you're just grinding on wrestling every single day. Like, I make leaps and bounds, and I feel like I get so much better in such a short amount of time. So yeah, all in all, I think I'm finding that middle ground of the MMA fighter and the boxer. We'll see. We'll see when I get in there, I guess.
So it sounds to me like you're very content with what's happening right now. Like you like doing the one discipline, makes life a little bit easier, but it's still very, very challenging and very fun. You're trying to hone this whole thing.
Yeah.
Are you able to say that you've had your last MMA fight?
I mean, maybe. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm still under UFC contract. I think I still have 3 fights or 4 fights on that contract. And the last interview was asking this, like, would I ever come back to the UFC? And I can't say no. Like, of course, like if the money, obviously for what my contract is right now, hell no, not a chance in hell. But if we were to talk and numbers made sense and we could get something that does make sense, I would think about it. You know, it was definitely something that I'm not done with, but I just don't know if that's ever going to happen. So, you know, we'll see.
But you'd be fine with not fighting in the UFC again.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun, but it's not like it's something I'm like missing extremely bad right now, you know.
It would have to be opportunistic more than anything.
Yeah, especially because I have other avenues now that will eat up that itch to compete like this. Like, this is cool, you know. Or, you know, I was even doing some jiu-jitsu tournaments and making some money doing that. Obviously not a lot of money, but some money, just kind of fitting those in here and there, which is fun, you know. Very low stress. I can, you know, train pretty, you know, basically just fit stuff in my work schedule and then just make it work. But yeah, we'll see. Like I said, it's got to make sense for sure.
So the debut for you, October 22nd, right? That's the plan.
Yep. October, do you know what they say? Chandler? It was Chandler, Arizona, I think is where it's going to be.
Yep, just outside of Phoenix. Do you know what like weight wise where you're going to be fighting at? Like around what weight? I know the weight classes are a little different BKFC, but like, do you know like what you plan to walk around at?
I think so. Basically, what we talked about with bare knuckle is going 155s, mainly because their 45 opponent selection is pretty slim. There's not a lot of guys that fight at 45s, I guess. So they're like, look, you're going to have a lot more opportunities for fights at 55s, which I'm fine with. I mean, I'm walking around like 170, 175 with a full belly. So it's making 45s wouldn't be super fun, but yeah, I think 155s probably. Is
there an opponent yet? I mean, you don't have to tell me who it is, but do you?
No, honestly, there isn't. I'm still waiting, man. I'm like, come on, guys. Give me a name so I can start doing some research and like start game planning and putting some stuff together. But I'm hoping that they said probably anytime soon. They're just trying to find someone. So
okay, we'll so it's not just like they haven't thrown any names at you.
Nothing at all. So fingers crossed that comes back soon.
I don't know. Like, I know you watch the events. Are there any names that you want? Like, maybe not for this first one, but you're like, it's not trash talking. This is like, you're a competitive guy. Like, you want to go in there and fight good guys and challenge yourself. Maybe there's someone on a nice little run right now, someone that sticks out to you that you want to get in there with. Like, is that something you thought about at all? Or are you just kind of just waiting for this first one to go before you start looking down?
Yeah, honestly, I have. And I want to get in there, get my feet wet. I want to see I've never competed in a boxing fight before, you know, like, I don't think it's going to be like super crazy different than an MMA fight, but it might be, you know, who knows? Maybe this is something I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? You know, and, you know, we'll see. But there isn't any particular names. I know Palomino has the belt. Good John. I know some of these guys, obviously I've been watching them fight at 55s. Those are all tough guys. I'm sure those guys are people that I'm probably going to end up getting in there with. If everything goes smooth, you know? So, yeah, we'll see, but no, there's not like one specific dude that I'm like, I have to get in there and fight this dude. You know, I'm sure I'll be making a little belt run, but, you know, let's get in there and get a win first before we say anything.
Well said. Speaking of 145ers, which you're not in the UFC right now, Josh Emmett has been trying to get back in there. He had a slew of injuries after the Burgos fight. And he told me a few months ago when I spoke with him that he had a setback and it sort of delayed things even more. And his hope was that maybe November, December, he gets back in there. He wants to try to get in before the end of the year. Like, how's he doing these days? Like, I saw, you know, a couple posts recently on social media, you guys training together. Do you still see him a lot? How's he doing right now?
Yep. Actually, I was just finished up doing my mitt work with my coach, and then he was coming in to work with them right after. So I got to see him a little bit, but he's moving along nicely, man. starting to get back in good shape. He's, slowly but surely, the injuries just have been plaguing him. Unfortunately, I feel horrible for him, but the dude is a beast. I mean, he's getting in there and he's doing some light sparring now and starting to hit mitts, picking up the pace on that stuff too, and jumping in some of the MMA stuff too. So I think as of right now, everything's right on track to come back. So fingers crossed, nothing else crazy happens for him, but yeah, man, I'm excited to see him get back in there and start knocking dudes out.
Yeah, I feel like he's always been a guy that like any momentum he gets, like the injuries, like you said, it just kind of slowed him down. And after that Burgos fight, I think his stock was bigger than it ever was. And then once they found out what the injuries were, it actually like boosted his stock even more. But now in MMA, as you know, like the world turns very quickly. And but people want to see him. They're excited to see him again. I feel like he's in a better spot now than he's ever been in his career.
Yeah, and that's awesome to hear, man. Josh is a hard worker, is a super nice guy. And the guy just, he definitely has probably some of the highest talent in our gym. I mean, I'd say that guy hits harder than anybody in our gym. I do not like getting hit by that dude. But yeah, man, hopefully that stuff all plays out and he's back in there soon.
There we go. And not long after you make your BKFC debut on October 22nd in Chandler, Arizona against the dreaded TBD. So get ready for that on Bare Knuckle TV, whatever that goes down. But Chad, I appreciate it. Congratulations. I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad you got everything that you deserve and that you wanted. And I'm glad you're diving into this new chapter in your life and that you're going to dive in with both feet. So I appreciate the time. Great catching up with you. And hopefully we don't take this long to do it again next time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on, man. It's always good talking to you. So yeah, let me know when you want to chat again. I'll make it happen.
Sounds good, man. Thank you again.